You're listening to the Quint podcast.
The murder of a 26-year-old Bajrang Dal activist in Karnataka's Shivamogga district brought the city to a boil, with large-scale protests erupting on 22nd February, followed by demonstrations across the state. The deceased man, known as Harsha Hindu, was reportedly stabbed by a group of 5 assailants on 21st February in Shivamogga, which is about 250 kilometers away from Bengaluru. This incident comes at an especially charged-up moment in the state, with several districts witnessing hijab versus saffron shawl protests. In this little town too, 58 students were suspended from the local college just recently for demanding to be allowed to attend classes wearing hijab. Expectedly, this incident soon turned into a political slugfest, with BJP leaders like Kapil Mishra calling this a new form of jihad and Goa CM Pramod Sawant blaming quote-unquote anti-Hindu fundamentalists. Karnataka Rural Development Minister and BJP leader K.S. Ishwarappa went on to openly accusing quote-unquote Muslim goons for this act, while BJP National Secretary C.T. Ravi called this murder a conspiracy. Though Harsha has been part of the protest demanding a ban on hijabs held on 7 February outside a college in Shivamogga, the reason behind the killing has not been ascertained yet. Despite the prompt action by the police, which made its first arrest in the case just hours after the incident, thousands of Bajrang Dal activists took to the streets the very next day to take out a funeral procession. This too soon turned violent, with reports of vandalism, including several vehicles being reportedly torched by the activists, resulting in police lathi charge and tear gas shells being fired. A curfew has also been placed in the city till 25th February. But the question is, how did this incident become so communally charged in a small town in Karnataka? Where does the investigation stand now? To unpack this, we speak to Nicola Henry, the Quint South Bureau Chief. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you, and I'm your host, Himmat. Let's start with what we know about Harsha Hindu and what led to his murder on 21st February. His real name is Harsha Jingadhe and went by quote-unquote Hindu as his last name on social media. According to an Indian Express report, he was an employee of a mobile service center in Sangali and was an active member of the Bajrang Dal for the past 5 years. According to the report, a gang of men arrived at the Bharti colony Shivamogga in a car and stabbed Harsha. Following the attack, he was taken to a nearby hospital where he was declared dead. The police has so far arrested a total of 6 persons: Mohammad Kashif, Saeed Nadeem, Afsifullah Khan, Rihan Sharif, Nihan, and Abdul Afran, and 12 are being questioned in connection with the murder. CCTV footage that has emerged from the intervening night between Sunday and Monday shows the police capturing one man from the neighborhood where Harsha was stabbed late in the night. The police, according to a Times of India report, suspect that Harsha's recent posts on social media pertaining to the hijab protest may have angered the assailants. According to an Indian Express report, Harsha was also involved in at least 5 cases of assault and attempt to murder, including several communal incidents of attacks on rival anti-social elements from the Muslim community. However, speaking to the media, Harsha's sister Ashwini said that he was a helpful citizen and never spoke anything negative. Here is what she said to the media.
ಎಲ್ಲಾರು ಮಕ್ಳು ಕಣೋ, ನಿಮ್ ತಾಯಂದ್ರಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾರು ಅಕ್ಕ ಅಣ್ಣ ತಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲಾರ್ಗೂ ನಾನು ಅವರು ಇವರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಎಲ್ಲಾರು ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆತ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಕಣೋ ಅಪ್ಪ ಅಮ್ಮ. ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಕೇರ್ಫುಲ್ ಆಗಿರ್ರಿ. ಹರ್ಷನ್ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಬೇಡಿ. ನಾನು ಯಾವ ಪಂಗಡದವರು ಏನು ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲಾರು ನನ್ನ ಅಣ್ಣ ತಮ್ಮಂದಿರೇ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗ್ ನೋವಾದ್ರೂ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಪ್ಪ ಅಮ್ಮಂಗೆ ನೋವಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಎಲ್ಲಾ ದ್ವೇಷ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಮ್ಮಂದಿರ ತರ ಇದ್ರು. ಇವತ್ ನಾನ್ ಅನ್ಭವಿಸ್ತಿರೋ ನಾವು ಬೇಡ. ನಾನ್ ನೋಡಿ ನೆನ್ನೆ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದೆ ನನ್ನ ತಮ್ಮನ್ನ, ಇವತ್ ಬೂದಿ ಆಗಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗ್ಬೇಕು.
Soon after the incident took place, thousands of Bajrang Dal activists decided to take a public procession across different parts of the city, starting around 1 p.m. while Harsha's funeral procession took place. But this procession soon turned violent as protesters attacked shops and establishments belonging to the Muslim community. According to a Wire report, private property in residential areas was also damaged, with several cars being torched. The police had to resort to tear gas to bring the mob under control. Speaking of the violence that erupted in the city, additional DGP Pratap Reddy said that 14 incidents took place and 3 FIRs have been filed so far. Section 144 has also been applied across the district. But the big question around this entire incident is, how did it become so communally charged, that too in a small district in Karnataka? What does this incident signal about the greater narrative that is being played out in the state? I speak to Nicola Henry, the Quint South Bureau Chief, who has been covering the ongoing hijab row from Ground Zero in Udupi and the Harsha murder case as well.
Nicola, I first wanted to know what is the ground reality in Shivamogga at the moment. Can you fill us in on that?
Yes, Shivamogga right now is mostly calm. On 20th February, after the murder took place, the place had seen some sort of violence against a section of homes, basically in Muslim localities. And on 21st February, the protests escalated with the Bajrang Dal calling for a huge rally, a funeral rally for Harsha, their member who was killed. And in that rally, as the rally passed through the city, in some localities there was stone pelting and there was some property damage as well. So today I spoke to a lot of residents in the surrounding areas of his home, and most of them said that they have left their homes and gone to relatives' places so that they'll feel safe. So this is in spite of Section 144 being imposed in Shimoga. But despite that, there is some fear among Muslim population, especially in some parts of Shivamogga right now. But other than that, there were no incidents of violence which was reported, say, yesterday and today.
Yeah.
So the situation is largely calm. Yeah.
Okay, so where is the police investigation at the moment? Like, have we learned more about the possible motive behind this murder? Like, from what I know also, that the police have said that there's no connection between this and the hijab row at the moment that they have seen. But what have you learned so far?
So after the incident happened, after the murder took place, the first statement which came from any of the political circles was from the BJP, with the minister K.S. Ishwarappa saying that the murder could have been caused by Muslim goons, and this is these are his words. So that kind of led the investigation, cast some aspersions on the investigation, thinking that whether the question was whether only some people or some organizations will be targeted. But so far in the investigation, what has come out is that the police from Shivamogga has not identified any political organization as they haven't found that there is any political affiliation for the murder which has happened. But they have arrested 8 people, and it is believed to be some sort of rivalry between the accused and the person who was murdered, Harsha, that seems to have culminated in this murder. So the investigation, it has not proved that there is any political motive behind the murder. And the Home Minister, Mr. A. Jnanendra, had earlier said that it doesn't have any political motive, but at the same time they are also looking at all sorts of political connections. So that connection has not actually been established so far, but 8 people were arrested in the case so far.
Okay. What kind of narrative is being built right now by the politicians in Karnataka?
Yeah. So when the hijab row happened and young Muslim women started asking for hijab in an Udupi college, they wanted to wear hijab and they were not allowed to. They held protest, and that protest had this retaliatory aspect where there were several other Hindu youth who wore saffron shawls and came and started protesting in colleges across Karnataka, and those protests basically led to kind of a ban on hijab in educational institutions, and which was again ratified by, supported by a recent High Court ruling and also the government order which the state government, the Karnataka BJP government, had passed. So in that particular context, especially in a place like Udupi, things were rather communally sensitive. So the societal fabric had actually divided itself on communal overtones, and because of which there was tension in some way or the other. So what has happened when Harsha's murder took place was that it erupted into further protests by some of the Hindu right-wing groups like Bajrang Dal, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, and to some extent the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. So why the Harsha's murder, as far as the investigation goes, is not connected with the hijab row. But, the political color which was given was that, this is some sort of a retaliation for, the difficulties which Muslim women are facing in different educational institutions. And I'm saying this because of the protests which were held by the Bajrang Dal and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and also the RSS. Across different districts in Karnataka. So today, for instance, in Ballari, in Chikmagaluru, and in surrounding districts, there were Bidar, there were protests which were held by Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the Bajrang Dal and supported by the RSS, which basically asked for justice for Harsha. And by justice for Harsha, it doesn't, they did not mean, justice for the person who was murdered and some sort of punitive action against the people who might have been involved in the crime. But it basically meant to say that, this is a protest asking for justice for Hindus. And not justice for Harsha in particular, the Hindus are under threat. That narrative which several right-wing groups have been posing through since a long time, that kind of got foregrounded in these protests, which have been happening in Karnataka since the murder of Harsha took place. So today in Bengaluru as well, there was this protest which was supported by the RSS, and which basically again pushed to the fore the message that there are crimes against the Hindus which are happening. So several right-wing leaders whom I had spoken to from VHP and from Bajrang Dal and from Hindu Janajagriti, all of them, told me that there were other attacks on Hindu men which had happened in Karnataka earlier, and those attacks were never discussed in the media, and that how come that's never kind of questioned or anything of that sort. So the issue here is that each of these incidents which are being said as attacks on Hindus could have several reasons. They need not necessarily have communal color. Like in the case of Harsha, we cannot clearly say that it was a communal murder. It could be a gang murder. It could be a murder which had sprung from say personal rivalry between two people. So we do not know that because the investigation has not yet concluded, or it has not reached a point where such details are divulged by the police. So using Harsha's murder, one cannot say that all Hindus in Karnataka are under threat. But unfortunately, that seems to be the narrative which is being pushed forth by some of the groups like say the Bajrang Dal or the VHP, supported by the RSS so far. So that's unfortunate because that kind of gives it a communal color. That the Muslims are out there to kind of endanger Hindu life, which need not necessarily be the case. So
Thank you, Nicola, for all your input. And listeners, that's the end of the episode. Nicola has been reporting from the ground in Udupi on the ongoing hijab row, and you can find a link to her stories in our show notes.
If you liked listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. We're available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website, and for any feedback, please shoot an email to podcast@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.